Welcome back to Nowhere Near Done. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. When I started this podcast, I had an idea. Every 10th episode, I wanted to sit down by myself and just reflect. Not necessarily recap every conversation, but really ask myself, what am I learning? I love sharing the stories of the incredible women who have agreed to come on the podcast, but also I love gaining from their wisdom and their perspective. So over the last couple of weeks, I went back and listened to every episode again, not as the host this time, as the listener. And then I did something I hadn't done since launching this podcast. I went back and listened to episode 1. I realized something I wasn't expecting. In that first episode, I said I wanted to create a place for women in the middle space of life, a place where things are shifting, where our bodies are changing, where maybe life doesn't quite feel like it used to. And I said I wanted women to have open, honest conversations so that we would feel a little less alone. 11 episodes later, I don't think the mission has changed, but it has become clearer. When I launched Nowhere Near Done, I thought I was making a podcast about perimenopause. And don't get me wrong, perimenopause is still a focus. We are going to keep talking about HRT, nutrition, GLP-1s, sleep, brain fog, relationships, because I think women deserve better information. We deserve to have these conversations without shame and judgment. That will always be a part of this podcast. But somewhere around episode 8, I realized something. Perimenopause is not the destination, it's just the doorway, because every conversation kept leading somewhere bigger. Identity, purpose, friendship, marriage, health, starting over, finding your voice again. Not because I planned it that way, but because that's just where the conversations went naturally. And when I listened to all 10 episodes back to back, I realized that every woman had been answering the same question. What happens when life doesn't go according to plan? One of the first guests who completely shifted my perspective was Joyce Dudley. Most people know Joyce as the former Santa Barbara County District Attorney, but what I'm most impressed with isn't her title, it's her timing. She didn't start law school until she was already raising 3 children. She had her 4th child when she was in law school and took the bar exam during perimenopause. When I first heard her story, I thought, wow, that is inspiring. Motherhood didn't delay her purpose, it prepared her for it.
Believe in yourself and keep challenging yourself. I've always been a little afraid of heights. So one of the things I did when I moved to Colorado was I signed up for a climbing class and with a big tower. And I thought I could do this. And there's a nexus between physically challenging yourself and believing in yourself in other capacities. The other thing that quite surprised me is I was married to my husband, John, for 32 years. I adored him. It was a fabulous relationship. He died of pancreatic cancer in 2019, and it was so hard for me to think of life without him. And after he died, I spent 2 years in grief counseling, dealing with everything. When he died, I still needed so much time alone to process that. I never imagined I'd get involved with somebody else, not because I was closed off to it, because it didn't interest me. I had my kids, I had my friends, I had a great marriage for many years. But then along the hiking trails of Crested Butte, I met Russ, and Russ became such a great friend and person, and we had so much fun together. My kids were grown, my grandkids, and I started dating him, and then ultimately we got married, and I'm so glad I took that risk of getting involved again. I was 68 at the time that I met him. I'm 73 now. We are super happy and having a blast. So whether you're taking risks in a relationship, whether you're taking risks athletically, or whether you're taking risks in your career, go for it because you don't want to have regrets. You want to have a smile on your face.
I keep thinking about how often women quietly tell themselves it's too late. Too late to change careers, too late to start something new, too late to dream differently. Joyce reminded me that sometimes life isn't delaying us, sometimes it's preparing us. Another conversation that has stayed with me was Jenny Schatzel. Jenny built an incredible fitness business, but then her definition of success changed. She talked about moving away from helping women become smaller toward helping women become stronger, more confident, more themselves.
So many of us are trying to get down to a weight our body is
Mhm.
not meant to be.
Yeah.
And this goes back to also women aging. We were never told that for the rest of our lives, our bodies are going to change.
Mhm.
And that is reality. Getting old is something we're trying to not do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, with like, don't get wrinkles,
Yeah.
don't gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
Getting old is a privilege,
Yeah.
and not everybody gets that privilege.
Yeah.
And here it comes back to like a lot of us are wasting this privilege
Mm-hmm.
because we are trying to be a size. Who made up the number?
Yeah.
If at 180 pounds, I'm living my fullest life,
Mm-hmm.
and at 140 pounds, it takes me out of living my life
Mm-hmm.
because I become so obsessed about keeping that.
Totally.
And who says at 47, I'm supposed to be 140, 150, 160? Who's
Mm-hmm.
making the rule? I want to make the rules.
Confidence isn't something we're born with. It's something life gives us through failure, through motherhood, through loss, through changing our minds, through realizing we don't actually have to live by someone else's definition of success. That's one of the gifts of getting older. Rather than focus on what's left behind, we should be focusing on all the incredible insights we gain. I can't talk about this podcast without talking about Dr. Suzanne Ramos, because this whole thing probably doesn't exist without her. Before meeting Dr. Ramos, I honestly thought I was just getting older. I thought I was tired because life was busy. I thought the joint pain, the brain fog, the irritability, and the interrupted sleep were just things I'd have to live with. Then she explained what was actually happening inside my body. Not in a scary way, but in a hopeful way. She reminded me that perimenopause isn't a disease, it's a transition.
As we go older, our ovaries basically start falling asleep, I like to put it.
Okay.
And as they fall asleep, they don't produce the same hormones that our bodies have been used to since basically puberty.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean? That means for the last 20 to 40 years, depending on when you started your cycles, your body's been used to this hormonal pattern that's been regular. Our ovaries produce two hormones. There's estrogen and progesterone receptors throughout our body. And so it makes sense why we're getting a multitude of symptoms when those levels drop. Insomnia, all that, worsening premenstrual symptoms, irritability. So all those things are initially a sign of a lack of progesterone.
Okay.
And so we start to supplement these things. That's what menopause hormone therapy is all about. There's something we can do about it. Bottom line is, we want to help you. And there's many ways to do that. We have not only hormones, but we have non-hormonal ways.
And that's why we'll always keep talking about women's health here, because women deserve answers. We deserve options. We deserve doctors who listen. Once a woman understands what's happening in her body, she can start asking completely different questions. Not what's wrong with me, but what do I want now? And I think that is a beautiful shift. All of these conversations back to back reiterate this idea that was bubbling under the surface, but it's really beginning to take shape and emerge as the real purpose of this whole endeavor. Women become more valuable as we get older, whether society recognizes it or not. We've lived, we've loved, we've failed, we've adapted, we've raised children, built careers, started over, changed our minds, survived things we've never thought we'd survive. And that isn't baggage, that is wisdom. And I think the world needs more of that. There were plenty of moments these last few months when I wondered if anyone was listening or even cared. This podcast takes time. It takes a lot of vulnerability. There have been plenty of late nights and early mornings editing after the kids went to bed or before they got up, wondering if this was just going to be a hobby, wondering if anyone besides my mom was actually going to appreciate what I'm trying to do. And then a few weeks ago, I ran into a friend I hadn't seen in a while, and we started talking, and she quietly told me she'd been feeling like a terrible mom. She had been beating herself up because she couldn't understand why she'd become so impatient with her kids, so reactive and angry, and she didn't recognize herself anymore. And then she said, I've been following what you've been sharing about perimenopause on Instagram, and for the first time I realized maybe it isn't me, maybe it's my hormones. She found a doctor, and she came up with a plan that fits her. And she said, I finally feel hopeful again. I got back in my car after that meeting and I was reminded why I started all of this in the first place. Because I remember having those same moments in early motherhood when I finally got out, made some new friends, and had honest, sometimes very humbling conversations where I was the one realizing I am not alone in this. And now that I'm in a better place, I want to offer that to other women. That is exactly why I started this whole thing, not to get thousands of downloads or go viral, but to help even just one woman feel less alone. And maybe that is how communities are built, one conversation at a time, one woman saying, "Me too," one woman passing along what she's learned to another. Maybe that's all a village really is. When I started this podcast, I thought I was creating conversations about perimenopause. And now I think I'm creating conversations about women, women who are asking new questions, discovering new dreams, finding their voice again, women who are realizing that everything they've lived through still has value. Perimenopause may be what brings us together, but it isn't the only thing that connects us. The thing that connects us is that we're all trying to figure out what this next chapter looks like together. If you've been here since episode 1, thank you. Thank you for believing in this before I knew exactly what it was becoming. And if this is your first episode, I'm so glad you're here and I hope you'll stick around. We will keep talking about hormones. We will keep talking about health. We'll keep talking about relationships and purpose and parenting and all the messy, beautiful parts of this season of life. But more than anything, I hope this continues to be a place where women feel a little less alone. Because that's actually what I hoped it would be from the very beginning. I just understand it a little better now. So thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting me. And thank you for helping build this little corner of the world where honest conversation still matters. Because your best chapter doesn't have to be your first. I'm Sara Bush, and this is Nowhere Near Done.